And we're live. Yeah, I was like frozen in time. Hey everyone, welcome. It's again, it's Thursday. It's 2 o'clock on my time. It's 11 o'clock on the East Coast. It's SVT time. My name's Dino. Dom is joining us as always. And today's again, as all guests are, very special guest. A veteran of SVT time, actually. Rudy's been on before, but please welcome and get your questions and ready for Rudy Sarzo. Man, Rudy, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Dino, Don, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I had such a great time the last time. I had to come back.
It's been about a year, and actually, it's funny. The last time you were on, I think that was the longest running SVT time. Like it went like an hour and 45 minutes because people were calling in with questions, and so we'll see how today goes too. But man, thank you for doing this again. It's great to see you. I know there's a lot of things going on that we'll talk about today, but in general, how's everybody? Everybody happy and healthy and keeping safe?
I mean, for LA standards, yeah, I'm very safe now.
That's like the strictest standards out there, man. Last time we spoke, we were like right early pandemic, so now it's like we're almost 2 years in, and
oh god,
yeah,
here we are.
It might actually be longer than a year. Then, seeing we're 2 years into this pandemic.
Yeah, did we? I can't remember. Yeah,
I'll look it up.
I guess it depends on where our last SVT time was, but staying busy, staying playing.
Yeah.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, super busy.
Yeah, I don't talk to Dino anymore.
I mean, I thought you were making commentary about your own, schedules and things like that. Very busy. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to kick off the actual touring schedule with Quiet Riot in February. And you know what's really interesting of going back to Quiet Riot, I mean, there's so many things that I have to like even though I'm going to say a sidebar to it, every single band that I've ever been in, I've always brought a little bit of Quiet Riot or a lot of Quiet Riot with me to the band, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have been playing with the Guess Who, which I love. I grew up with the music of the Guess Who, but it's more of a 60s, 70s, style, more traditional 60s rock and roll. And I was using in-ears all the time, and now I have the option of using or not using in-ears. And a lot of shows that I've been doing is without the in-ears, and it's all full volume, which I was not using that with the Guess Who. It was more of a very moderate volume on stage. You could actually speak or listen to the voices in your head as you're playing. And so now it's like, wow, okay. There's a certain articulation that I want to maintain, but now because it's the frequencies are so big right now. I mean, going back to full volume, and not only full volume, but also the subs from the PA system that start filtering through the stage.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, okay, now I have to like re-educate myself and how to articulate a certain way, because this is it's a whole different ball game now.
Yeah.
And
there's
one
so
of the
many
things that
bassists so jealous of you right now, that the fact that you get the full volume thing again.
Loud. There's a photo of me playing with Ozzy, and I had like 5 SVT bottoms and heads. And I got to tell you, back in the day, you'd be shamed if anything on stage is on stage but not on. Everything had to be on.
Yeah.
So that you see on stage, it's plugged in and on, right? So we were that loud.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm getting there again with Quiet Riot, but if you see 2 SVT 810s and 2 heads, they're on.
Right. Do you find yourself playing? Obviously your playing style is always it's your playing style. But do you find, like with Quiet Riot, do you find yourself digging in a little more than maybe you did with the Guess Who,
Oh
or
yeah.
okay, yeah, I was
Oh
gonna
yeah.
say
As a
it's
matter
a
of fact, that is a really great question, uh, because it's actually altered the way that I EQ my bass on the instrument, not on the panel. What I do is certain songs I roll back uh, the uh, the treble pot, treble, the tone pot,
yep,
right?
Mhm.
yep,
And I've been using the Yamaha a lot, because it's passive and it's got the precision and the jazz pickups.
yep,
So again, that's part of the Quiet Riot sound,
sure,
and with the SVT. And so now, because I find myself digging a little bit harder, uh, I roll off a lot of the highs because I'm going to be getting the definition from picking so
Mhm.
hard. The
yeah,
Yeah.
strings hitting the frets, the fretboard.
yeah, yeah, and that with because it is passive, that's all you're using with Quiet Riot is passive basses at the Yamaha passive.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I grew up playing passive instruments, and it wasn't until I started playing with Ozzy that I actually I had one bass from like 1967 to 1981. That was a Fender Jazz,
okay,
and so when I started playing with Ozzy, Sharon said, "You can't go on the road with just one bass. Go across the street." It was a place called Nadine's. It's a local mom
yeah,
and pop
I remember
store. Yeah,
Nadine. Yep.
yeah, Nadine's. And I went to Nadine's and I looked at the wall and I saw this Music Man Saber, and I said, "I'll take that one." So they sent the accountant over, picked it up, and I went over to. Then I took it on a rehearsals, plug it in, and I go, "Wow, this is way louder than my Fender Jazz." So then I went back to Nadine's and said, "Can you put a preamp on this Fender Jazz?" So just
Oh
to
wow.
balance it out. So they did. So I was that's when, and in the 80s we had this huge explosion of especially certain brands started to to trying to improve poorly built bases with electronics
Yeah,
I got
to
you.
compensate for the tone, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
And I can tell you this. I mean, I worked with a company and I had a signature model, and it's not PV.
I was gonna say, tell me.
that, that basically one one day, because I had a bunch of tape. I used to put tape. What do you call that? They call it roadie tape, whatever.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Gaff.
yeah,
Gaffer
Tape,
tape.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what it is. Gaffer tape on the back of the instrument, because I used to wear, we all did these huge studded buckles with studs,
Yeah.
and it
right.
would just kill
Yeah.
the instrument,
Mhm.
make all these dents and everything. So I used to put this tape that really helped just a little bit. But on this particular brand, one day I was peeling off the gaffer tape, and along came off particle wood.
The wood
Nice.
came off too, not just the paint. Wow.
It was made out of particle wood,
Wow.
and yeah, with really souped up electronics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just give me an instrument that without all this electronics, just naturally, organically, it sounds really, really good. Like I
Mhm.
mentioned, and this Yamaha, it's excellent. Beautiful.
now there's an interesting story behind that Yamaha too.
Mhm.
The- that's
Well,
the
you
same.
brought it to me. You
I brought it to, but
you brought it to me. Yeah.
that particular bass has kind of been through the ringer
Oh,
when
and then some.
Oh
when
yeah, I remember this now.
yeah when you
Yeah.
were touring with the Guess Who.
Well, the Guess Who, they ship their guitars from show to show FedEx, and this time the FedEx truck rolled over. This is in the middle of winter somewhere in Iowa. Rolled over, got caught on fire on the freeway.
Yep.
Caught on fire, and the fire department came in and put all these chemicals on the truck just to put out the fire. So, and then a garbage truck or whatever came in and just cleared the whole mess and threw everything on a landfill.
Imagine that.
And I get a text and a photo from my tour manager saying, well, I got some bad news. Your base was in this wreck, and this thing looked just like unbelievable. You know, I still have the photo.
Wow.
And the photos.
Yeah. And then a couple of days later, he sends me another a text with photos saying, you know what, there's somebody that worked at the landfill, saw the tags on our cases, contacted me, and some of the gear has survived. And I said, what about my base? And he sent me a photo with the base. And of course, it looked like it had been in a fire. And so at the next gig, I picked it up and I said, you know what? This thing is still playable. There's nothing wrong with this. It one of the tuning pegs had broken, and so it was making a little buzz. So I brought it with me home, and I took it over to Yamaha, which is pretty close to where I live. And they fixed it. They put it back together again, and I'm still playing it.
That's amazing.
Hey, can I show you? Can I show these pictures?
Oh yeah, please, yeah.
Yeah. Let me see if I can share screen. Let me see if I can do this here. So I don't know if you guys are seeing this or not.
Oh wow, yeah, there it is.
Oh my gosh.
But that,
can you blow that up? Because I know what it looks like.
yeah, let me see. Yeah, let me stop sharing this and see if I can blow it out.
There you go. That's pretty good.
So
yeah.
This is where your base was.
Yeah.
And then
somewhere in there.
Wow. In there. And then this was the back of the headstock.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Wow. Wow.
Anyways.
Yeah,
fire in the flames.
Yeah, the strings melted too.
Imagine that. Wow.
Yeah.
But still, you brought it to the custom shop to Yazla.
Yeah.
In Calabasas, and the guys fix it up for you, and it's a playable bass again.
It's brand new. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
It's amazing.
That is awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
I know we get totally sidetracked there. We kind of got off the power. I know we were talking about passive basses, but so man, it's like everything kind of came full circle with you coming back to Quiet Riot. Can you tell us kind of how that all transpired?
Yeah, you know, when right before Frankie passed away, he made certain requests to his wife, and one of them was for me to come back to the band.
Okay.
You know, to Quiet Riot. So it had been floating around the whole concept for about a year before I found, you know, the right time to make the transition, because of COVID, a lot of the dates for 2020 were moved to 2021.
Okay.
You know, and I have made commitments to the Guess Who, so I could not just, like, you know, drop everything and leave him hanging. So I had to wait for the right time, and you know, after the bulk of the dates were already performed, for me to make the announcement and to make the transition to Quiet Riot. Also, there had to be a time where the bass player at the time, Chuck Wright, would also given enough notice, you know, that this is going to happen, so he could, you know, make the next arrangements, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was in the works, but nothing really official until like the middle of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but that. Having said that, that's just the business transitions part of it. What I'm working on now is the consciousness transition,
Yeah.
which is at the core of why we do things.
Sure.
Why did Quiet Riot back in the 70s, that formation with Kevin DeBro and Randy Rhoads and Drew Forsythe was the it was the at the core of my consciousness.
Mhm.
You finally find the right group of people that we all think alike musically and have the same taste in music and everything, and lifestyle,
Sure.
image, the whole thing, the whole package, of what
Yeah.
makes a band successful. Uh, and like I mentioned before, there's always a Quiet Riot consciousness to every band that I play in, and to be back in the group that it's 100% consciousness for me. It's like I got pieces that are still floating around out there that I have to bring home with me,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
because I've been leaving some behind.
Yeah.
It's just a trail,
Yeah.
you know.
That's it's funny that I'm sure any bass player, any musician that's watching this understands that too. But it's
Mm.
it's almost, I mean, it's almost like an athlete that kind of gets his head in the game with a certain team.
Mhm.
We do the same thing. It's like
Yeah.
when you join it's a consciousness. When you join a band, it is a consciousness, and it's a joint consciousness between however many people are in the band. You
Mhm.
have to have your head in that game. Otherwise, like you say, there's still pieces out there that need to be kind of wrangled in. That's such an awesome way to think of it.
So that's what I'm working on. And it's I am so blessed because I know a lot of musicians who their consciousness was with a band like let's say the Randy Rhoads version of Quiet Riot.
Mhm.
That band that almost made it. That band that you gave it all, everything that you had, but just for
Yeah.
some reason it didn't. And then you move on, and every other band that you're in is not doesn't have the same consciousness as that band did. You start making a lot of compromises
Mhm.
compromises all the way, and you're struggling because you're still tied emotionally to that. You know what it's like to be in a band that
Yeah.
it's a collective consciousness, and
Yeah.
you're still looking for that in your
Yeah.
journey. And I was so blessed that 40 years ago I was able to find that again in the mental health version of Quiet Riot. Because again, even with Frankie Benelli, this year is going to be 50 years that we started playing together. So by the time that 40 years ago, I started recording the mental health record, which I was still a member of Ozzy when I recorded the initial tracks.
Mhm.
I had already played with Frankie for 10 years, and it was like my first entry into realizing that there is a collective consciousness in a group,
Yeah.
finding musicians that you share that with. Because up until then, I was playing in party bands. It's just like, I have a little band and my buddies, and we're playing. We're just doing uh, uh, top 40 just to please, so we could get gigs and have fun and meet
Sure.
girls and things like that. And then you set your sights on becoming a professional musician. That happened to me around the time that I met Frankie. I was 21, 21, 22. I had made a commitment, said, this is what I want to do. This is not about parties anymore. This is about finding, and then playing with Frankie is like, yeah, look at this guy. He likes everything and he's showing me stuff that is new to me because he used to work in a record store back in South Florida, Peaches, big record store, and he used to collect records that were imports fusion, like Gong and all these
Wow.
progressive bands from Europe. And I used to go over to his place and he would turn me on to all of this, and I go like, wow, not only do we think alike, but this guy's teaching me. He's mentoring me in how to play rock, not a Latin version of rock and roll, which there's roots in it, but we're talking about British rock, British metal, which again, it's kind of like it's always coming. First of all, in my opinion, it comes from Africa. Then it came to the New World. But as far as rock and roll goes, it came from the United States. Then it made its way to England. Then it came back to the U.S. Just like this whole thing, right? But there's a certain way of playing it. You got to be part of the rhythm section. In Latin music, the role of the bass player is different.
Totally different. Yeah.
Totally different. And that's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, rhythm section. I'm playing with a kick drum. I'm listening to everything. I'm in the middle here. I'm not just all by myself being like a counterpoint instrument.
Right.
That's what the bass is, And there's no drums in Latin music. There's percussion, but no drums, So it's like, now I got to think completely different here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to cap off the whole thing about consciousness, when I was playing with Ozzy, what made it for me, the fact that I could go from sleeping on the floor and my resume said Rudy Sarzo, he used to play with Randy Rhoads on the Sunset Strip. That was it. That's all I had, right? To playing with Ozzy. What really made it possible for me to really understand what was going on was that Randy had already been there for a couple of years. So he had been through that learning process of learning to live with the Osbournes. They weren't even married yet. Yeah, literally living with the Osbournes, right? Okay. So we had our own reality show going on in that bus. Unfortunately, no cameras, but it was going on.
Right.
So it was like Randy would say, don't worry, don't take it personal. This is the way they do things. And it wasn't real. It was just little oddities. Odd things that I wasn't used to. Now they're just normal, but not back then, So Randy was a continuation of my Quiet Riot consciousness.
Yeah.
If you look on stage in those days, it was one guy from Black Sabbath in the middle and two guys from Quiet Riot. And Tommy Aldrich, So when Randy passed away, I lost that. I lost my familiarity, my family, that consciousness that we share. Listen, I love Ozzy, I love Sharon, but Ozzy was born right after World War II ended in England, in Birmingham. He used to tell me stories of him playing in the rubble of buildings that have been blown out by the Blitzkrieg, and in Birmingham, industrial town, doom and gloom. That's where the music came from. Meanwhile, Randy from Southern California, very sunny, going to the beach. I grew up, I'm from the Caribbean, So it was like, okay, I could relate so much more to Randy than I could with my upbringing to Ozzy, Sure. And like I said, I respect him and I love him, but we didn't share a whole lot of background, having things in common, So when Randy passed away, I lost that. And it took me to walk into Pasha Studios to record Thunderbird, a song that I used to play with Kevin in Dubrow, which was like the interim. It's the missing link between Quiet Riot Randy and Quiet Riot Mental Health.
Okay.
Dubrow. And I used to play with Kevin. I used to live with him. And we used to play live Thunderbird. And I came in and I recorded that. And it went by so fast that there was time left in the studio. And they kept asking me, do you remember Slick Black Cadillac? Yeah, let's go over a couple of times. I haven't played that in a year and a half. So we recorded that and then a couple of more songs. So by the time I left the session, which was just going to be a 1-song session, I had recorded, at least 4 songs for Mental Health.
Oh, wow.
And then within days, I went over to New York to record Speak of the Devil, the Ozzy re-recordings of Black Sabbath songs.
Yep.
And by the time I was done with that session, doing that live at the Ritz, 2 nights, I had made the decision that I needed to go back to my family, to that consciousness again of Quiet Riot. Yeah. And that was 40 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's it's because I know, first of all, you explain all that in your book too. Just and I don't have it up here. I have it on my bookshelf back here, but I know that is explained in your book. You talk about that, not in depth like you just did, but you did actually in depth. But I know I always had that question, like, because I followed your career since you were with Ozzy, obviously, and it was like, well, wait a second, Ozzy, then he wasn't Quiet Riot, but he's an Ozzy, but now you're back with Quiet Riot. But the way you just explained that, just really like everybody should be able to understand that, just kind of your history with Ozzy and Quiet Riot. But that also, like you say, to bring it back around, getting into the full consciousness of when you were with Quiet Riot, and then when you were with Ozzy, when Randy was still in the band, when Randy was alive. So thank you for explaining that. I guess that's a long-winded way of me saying thank you for clarifying that, because I know a lot of people have that question. So
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, to me, playing music with family, that consciousness that I gotta tell you, I have worked harder at my failures than I've had at my successes. I have failed with people that we were so on the same page about everything that we were doing musically, and it just doesn't succeed. And then you get that phone call that out of nowhere, they say, hey, are you available to do this? And it just boom, 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 falls right into place.
Is the thank you, Haji, for posting that. Actually, he just put the Amazon link up there. So yeah, that's interesting you say that. You've worked harder at your failures than your successes.
Yeah.
It says a lot.
Yeah. So success comes easy.
Yeah.
It's the failure that comes hard.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. I think we all can, we certainly all can. But,
we got a cool question from Bill. It says, in this day and age, how do you think recording and performing with availability of, a bunch of different DAWs and plugins will impact musician in the near future? And I was going to use that as a segue because you're using SVT Suite now, right?
Yes,
to an extent.
yes, I am. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. I use Pro Tools, and there's a feature in Pro Tools that if you're going to use the low latency, you cannot use a plugin.
Yep.
Having said that, okay, what's great about it is that I'll get a really good direct tone first, right? Okay. Because I know that it's all about the performance at this point. It's not necessarily about the tone. Because what I do is once I'm happy with my performance on the track, then I go back to the SVT Suite and I put it in. Then I know that I can go, okay, let me see how this sits in the mix with everything.
Yeah.
And that's what I really spend post-recording, post-performance, most of the time with.
And you use the SVT, you use the 50th live, right? Or are you using that on the new dates?
Well, then I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of regional dates, which means that we're going to be driving, in the Southwest here. And I have it fired up. And I got to tell you, I have very old ears. I've been playing just I've been
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh, what happened?
Rudy's internet.
Oh no!
Somebody cut a cable. I was just going to show this screen.
Yeah, right. Well,
until he gets back,
yeah,
I will show this screen. Because, Rudy, I think, is going to go into how he is using the 50th anniversary SVT, the Heritage 50th on tour, because he was a very, very important part of getting this even out to the public. Him and a bunch of artists came in, shot out a bunch of different SVTs from early 60s to today's modern day CL. And we really just picked, kind of the cream of the crop of each of those SVTs, and actually kind of get 2 SVTs in one here with the 69 and the 75. So I know he uses the plugin a bunch. So I'm just interested to hear, it sounds like he records direct for no latency and then is able to throw this on after the fact, which is actually a great point of like, if you have a DI track on bass, say you have you've recorded an amp track and then you have your corresponding DI track. A lot of times now, I used to just let that DI track sit and be totally clean and just go through DI and be good to go. Now when I'm sending out tracks, and I'm curious to hear if Rudy does this too, like I'll typically either I can, have a little bit of cheating and like do a little amp tone on the DI track, or I can even like change the amped track to, change some EQ here, or even in the effects, add some compression or whatever. But what's really cool is you can go into, let's see here, into the templates and go, where is it? SVT DI only. So if you used a, more stale DI, or you want something that's just got a little more body to it, you can run that DI track just through this and pump up the saturation knob and just get a little more life out of the DI. We got Rudy back now.
He's back.
All
right.
It just blew up.
No worries.
All right.
Yeah. I
was just talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, dumb. Yeah. What were you saying?
Oh no, I was just going into you said you recorded you mostly record DI, and then you were kind of going into, adding basically after the performance your tone, and I was telling everyone like how you were very intricate part in doing the 50th, or integral part rather, doing the 50th anniversary SVT with other artists, and just like picking out what was the best out of like different eras of SVT. And so it's really cool to know like you're one of the customers where you were playing this actual amp live, but then you can go in and kind of tweak what you want in the studio.
Yes, I actually played the 60s in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the 70s and the 70s, and then later on, their newer versions and all of that. So I every time that there's a tonal I wouldn't say change, but more of a metamorphosis, because it's a continuation of the tone, and then it's kind of like, it's not that it changes, it just gets bigger and more defined, more focused.
Yeah.
So that's why we got new gear. That's why, we traded in our 60s for something from the 70s, because it actually coincided with the sound of the day.
Yeah, right.
An amplifier, an Ampeg has been recorded on some of the greatest, classic records. So it's the sound of the day, and you associate that sound with a moment in time. It's like a photograph, and through the years it has evolved. And what's really amazing about it is that musically, I would pinpoint this to grunge. A lot of the musicians started recording with older gear, basically because it was cheaper for them to buy. Go to a pawn shop and find something that you cannot get anymore, but find a classic SVT in a pawn shop. Well, now thanks to social media, you can't do that anymore, because everybody knows the value of that, and it's not going to be affordable. What I mean? Yeah. And so what happened is, when grunge came in, it went back to what I believe was, with a very few exception, they were using passive instruments, especially on the bass. And you start getting, now you're relying on the actual tube sound of the amplifier to get the growl. Just using, some kind of a preamp on your guitar anymore, because it was a combination of a pawn shop bass with a pawn shop amplifier. I'm talking back in the 90s,
Yeah.
When you could actually walk into a phone shop and find things like that, especially not in LA, but a lot of the bands, the grunge bands, came out of areas that were not necessarily very showbiz, like Seattle, let's say. It was homegrown stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't like there were like all the major record labels. Yeah.
He's on.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
So to me, sound coincides with what's happening socially and culturally at the time. And a lot of the music that is made today comes from that same consciousness. And what I find is that when I plug into the 50th anniversary, first, I gravitated to the 60s, side of the preamp,
Yeah.
And I'm going like, I'm listening to it and I go, wow, I haven't heard that purity and harmonic distortion. The real deal.
Yeah.
It's still in my head. It's still the sound in my head, but to finally hear it right in front of me again, that was a beautiful thing. You can get me out of my rehearsal place. My wife said to guys, dinner's ready. I'll be there. Because what happens is it's an emotional experience. It's almost like quantum time travel. Because now you're experiencing what you experienced back in the 60s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's resonating with you exactly the same way, but I am different person because I am more seasoned. I'm older. But with all the ears to be able to go, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is again. Right?
Yeah.
So who came up with the concept of jumping, being able to?
I don't know. I know, but I think it's awesome, and I don't know. I think Rudy paused again.
Yep.
Yeah.
That came from the original SVTs back in the late 60s, 70s. Guys were jumping channels, and I think that might have gotten adopted from the old Marshall plexis, where guys were jumping channels in plexis.
Interesting.
I could be wrong. If anybody knows actually where that started, please chime in. But I think that's where it originally started, was guys were jumping channels on their old Marshalls. And that's where bass players had the idea to do it on their SVTs.
Yeah, because I was never inclined to do that because we didn't have, like we have on the 50th anniversary, the feature of 2 era preamps.
Right.
Now I'm like, okay, now let me see what I can get out of this,
Yeah.
So I did. I jumped it and I went, first of all, to be able to jump it and to choose volume levels from each preamp separate from each other, right?
Yeah.
So you mean, like if you turn down completely channel 1, you can still hear channel 2 according to whatever level you're using, and then blend it in. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And after a little while, I started to, of course, I have, this is me at home blasting it in my studio.
Yeah.
And I'm listening to it and I'm going, wow, this by itself. And this is what I did. I went to the 70 first, and then I jumped it to the 60s. I did the reverse.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what happened is I started getting to what I feel is the best of both worlds, which was the definition and punch of the 70s. And then the harmonic distortion of the 60s.
Yeah.
Okay.
I loved it. Yeah.
I'll have to try that, because I've always gone into channel 1. I've always, like, even on my old 69 back here, I always plugged into channel 1 and then jumped over to channel 2. But I'll have to try that, reversing it, plugging into channel 2 and jumping to channel 1.
Well, I guess it's going to be what, depends on what you're looking for sonically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the mid and the grit from the 60s is just unlike no other, but the classic. Like I love using the rockers switches from the 70s, ultra high and ultra low. It just like, as the kids say, it hits different.
As the kids say. But yeah, and just for anybody that's watching, I've got over the last, I don't know, couple of months here, I've had a lot of people asking if they could do this on their original SVTs. There's a lot of guys and players out there that have 60s and 70s SVTs. And yes, by all means, you can definitely, that's where this originated, was on the original SVTs. It's just with the Heritage 50th, now you have the benefit of being able to utilize two different voice channels and blend the nose together. So yeah, it is quite a thing. And I see more and more people doing it now, like jumping channels, and it's almost like a primitive way of, I don't want to say bi-amping, because bi-amping involves two different power sections, but you're stacking preamps where, you can dial, like you said, you dial in the 70s for the punch and the headroom, and then you dial in 69 for the harmonic distortion and the the gooiness that you get out of the 69 channel. It's pretty cool.
What inspired me to do that was the fact that I do it on the suite, the plug-in suite, and I thought, well, if it's really working on the suite, it should also work just as well, or even better, on the amp.
Yeah. It should. Yeah, it should. Go back and forth. Actually,
another secret weapon on the suite is the DI, and you got to press a specific little that right there.
Yeah.
It's Dom put that little Easter egg in there for everybody.
Yep. I love this. I love having this in here.
It's fantastic. What a difference. It actually is a huge difference with it on.
Yeah. A lot fatter.
Yep. So
Rudy, do you run yours pretty hot, like in terms of saturation, or you just kind of leave it sit a little bit lower?
Oh, it all depends on the track.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of using plugins post recording, that I can tailor my tone rather than to tailor my playing to the tone. I tailor my tone to my playing, and everybody else is playing on the track.
Yeah, that's always been like an age-old question for me, and I go back and forth all the time, and I obviously Dom knows way more about this than I do as far as tracking at home. But I've always okay, do you track through the plugin, or do you track with a clean sound and then add the plugin after you've done the tracks? And I know you just answered that tracking and then adding the plugin after allows you to spend more time focusing on your playing when you're tracking, and then adjusting your sound after the fact, correct?
Yeah, and also, especially if you're working on your own projects or a band project that you have absolute creative freedom. Let's say you start playing a slap line. What keeps you from distorting it after the fact? That if you play with it without distortion, you're not going to be as articulate in your play.
Yeah. That's I'm starting to not learn, because I've always known how to track stuff, but I've never used plugins. I've always, I use my preamp and my DI and my B15. I usually record with 3 tracks here, and I'm just starting to use the plugin more and more. And the guys that I work with, I send them off and to see if they hear the difference, and nobody's really hearing the difference. So it's kind of like, well, that's a good thing. They can't tell if I'm using the amp or if I'm actually using the plugin.
Yeah.
And
you know what the secret is there, Dino? You go here, you go, where is it? You go to the back and you just crank up this hum a little bit, and nobody will ever know the difference.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? Another Easter egg is the impulse response cabinets that come with it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I love these. And just being able to just throw on different mics like in a split second is just so great. It's actually taught me a lot more about which mics have which characteristics. And then, if you want your own impulses, go for it.
Yeah. We've talked about this in the past too. It's like, anybody that, if you want to learn how to, not how to produce, but if you are a producer or a wannabe producer and you want to learn what mics sound compared to, like what a Sennheiser sounds compared to an AKG, and mess around with distance miking or close miking or room miking, this is like the perfect tool to get your chops, to get your production chops together by messing around with different mics. You don't have to go out and spend $1,000 on an RE20 or an AK 414 or anything. It's right there for you. So it's pretty cool.
I agree with you 1,000%. And another thing that I experience about that is that, from touring and going in the studio, but, I mean, touring, I would go out for a year and a half. In the studio, I would go in like, with a specific engineer and whatever. So there's not a whole lot of experimenting. But on the road, you're given a choice of maybe 4 microphones that are going to go in your cabinet. Yeah. With this suite, you can experiment with microphones that usually all the, whoever's the engineer or the sound company, they don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So true.
And it just, I mean, that anytime, we've all run through it. You work with an engineer, you do a gig with a front of house guy that has a certain mic on your cab, and you come back and go, man, that really sounded good. What kind of mic is that you're using? Most sound guys are like, oh, dude, check it out. It's this new, they're happy to oblige and show you what they're using, and you just kind of make a mental note of that. So next time, if you're working with an engineer or producer, it's like, you wouldn't happen to have a Roy or blah, blah, blah. Oh, do you know about that? It kind of takes the bass player out of the dark ages a little bit.
Yeah. Then they know they can't get away with like the other tricks.
Yeah, we know what works. We know what we're talking. Like, please don't stick me with a $20 DI and just get the sound out of that.
They're like, oh, we can't do the whole like, no, we turned it up, and they just touch the fader vibe.
Right.
Rudy, this is another good question from Isaac. Hey, Rudy, do you have a bass amp piece of gear that you previously owned that you wish you still had?
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, my 60s Ampeg.
Is that the SVT? Didn't you like take an SVT on a train or something crazy?
I did, that one. Yes. Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Cross country on a train. That's incredible.
Yeah. Right. Oh, no. And then once it got off the train in Omaha, it was in the back of a Datsun. Was a 240Z from Omaha to LA. I'm back. It never got plugged in because we never got to jam with anybody.
That's like the best car, endurance test ever.
Yeah, right. That is too funny, man. Wow. I mean, I wish I still had pictures. This was back before, when you actually took a Polaroid, but I remember sticking an SVT rig, the head, in my 69. I had a 69 Volkswagen Beetle. And I put the head in the back seat, and then the passenger seat I pulled out so that I could put the cabinet laying on its side, sticking into the back seat.
What did you have? What cabinet?
An A10.
Oh my gosh.
It was a square back A10.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I remember my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, God bless her, she stuck with me through all this. If she wanted to come to the gig, she'd have to sit in the back seat with like the head halfway on her lap and bases, gear, and and
by the way, that's a square back. Look how massive that thing is.
Yeah. Yep.
You were smart to marry her. Very smart man.
I'd pull up at school. People be like, why do you have the passenger seat pulled out of your, why is there no passenger seat in your Volkswagen? It's like, well, I'm a musician and, it's hauling gear. It's like, they do have other vehicles for that, It's like, yeah, but it's a Volkswagen.
Did you ever get one of those very small trailers and hitch your motorcycle to it?
That'd be incredible.
No, I thought about doing that, but in fact, there have been a few gigs where I have like a little stick upright with a little BA combo that I've gone to gigs on my motorcycle, But the problem is, my fear is leaving the gig at 1 o'clock in the morning on a motorcycle just isn't.
Yeah.
I'm a little skittish about being on the roads at 1 o'clock in the morning, even not coming from a gig. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's smart.
yeah, I thought about doing that too. That or just putting wheels on my 810 cab.
Yeah, just hitch it to the back
and just pulling that and using that as the trailer and just stand it up. And there you go.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So Rudy, you've been using the rocket base a little bit too, right?
It's right.
So you can throw that on your back on a motorcycle, a little 108.
Right.
I take it on my Prius. It's so easy. I mean, first of all, it's one of the things that I love about this is taking it to a session. And the engineer probably has never seen one of these because these are very new, but he's familiar with a rocket base, from like way back. So I plug it in and immediately is like, whoa, what is that? And I go, yes, the Ampeg rocket base. It's the new, the new model. Yep. And the next thing is I gotta have one. That's it. There has not been a single session that I've done that the engineer has not said, I gotta get one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember when we were demoing the 108 in like a back room at NAMM, all these artists were coming in the front room and they were just like, what, like, are you guys making a new SVT? And one of our employees was like, oh no, that's a 108 combo. And they're just like, what? Like, because the grit, like, it just gives it a whole other dimension.
Yeah. Are they miking it in the studio, Rudy, or are they taking a DI?
They mic it.
Yeah.
And it's usually I have I think I sent you guys photos of. I did a session that they had a couple of mics, a 57 and a Telefunken.
Okay.
Miking it right on of course on the same speaker. And it's so, the tone is so focused.
Yeah.
It is.
Where is it?
Yeah. The guys, they did such a good job in voicing that amp, and
there it is.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, and the fact that I can pick it up with one hand. This is what is it, like 15, 20 pound stops?
Yeah, I think the 115 is like 20 something pounds.
Yeah.
It's like half the weight of the previous combos.
Yeah.
I got the 12-inch speaker. That's a 12. Yeah.
Yeah, that one's definitely 20s.
Yeah.
We're in the 20s, yeah. I think actually that one is half the weight of the BA 112. I think we were able to get it that low.
Yeah. And it's just it was a long time coming. It really was a long time coming. We had a lot of requests for rocket bass. We had a lot of requests for players that wanted a lightweight combo amp that that sounded great. And so it was the right time, the right amp at the right time.
Yeah.
There's a question here, and this is an interesting question because I know we've asked this in the past, but so Brian is asking. He's using in-ears. Question is, can you use the Ampeg suite in a live situation so you don't have to hump the heavy stuff?
Yeah.
Now, I know this has been brought up in the past. Dom and I have answered this. We think obviously with a good interface and low latency,
absolutely,
it probably could be. And
yeah, I've talked about using this. I haven't had a situation yet just because of COVID where I was able to apply this. But yeah, especially if you're running in-ears, or if you're an MD in a band, or just maybe if you're sharing like main stage with the keys rig or something like that, this would go great in there. And that was one of the appeals to even making it too, was like giving somebody a live option as well as in studio, that they don't have to lug all that gear, and you can actually have a different preset per song. I think it'd be incredibly useful if, like Dino was saying, if you had a low enough latency situation.
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
Since because I've been using in-ears for the last 5 years with the Guess Who, so I dealt with all of this. I use one ear for the in-ear and the other one open so I could hear the stage volume. And we had an SVT, but I tell you, at the volume that I was playing at, I could have definitely used a rocket bass amp. So I think in a situation like that, because what happens is with a plug-in, see, to me, a plug-in is really desirable when you have two-dimensional tracks. Let's say you're playing along to a track of drums, a stereo track, two-dimensional. Once you're playing live, it's a multi-dimensional world.
Okay.
And it's not even 3D anymore. It's beyond 3D.
Yeah.
Because you got all the harmonics of all the frequencies floating around the room, and not only from your instrument, but also from the other instruments, and they're commingling. And that's when you start feeling the frequencies. So yes, you can have the combination of both. You can have in your in-ear, you can have the suite. You could even have whatever the output of the suite go right into your rocket bass, which is lightweight, very small footprint, and then have one ear for the suite, like I used to use, and then the other open for the stage, for that three-dimensional feeling. It's an emotion, because what's going to happen is you're going to start hearing, if you have both in-ears in and you're not using any amplification on stage, your body is going to get multi-dimensional frequencies vibrating from the stage, physically you're on stage, but your ears are going to be listening to two-dimensional stereo.
Interesting. Yeah. There's almost like a separation there.
It's a separation, emotional separation. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Huh. Yeah. It's. I remember you saying that, how I started, and they, like, you talk to the in-ear manufacturers and they all say, oh no, you should never pop one ear out. And
I do it. I can't not do it now. Especially if I'm singing, I have to have the air of the room. Yeah.
And I know they make in-ears that, they have the ambient feature where you can still hear some of the room, but I usually put the in-ear, the ear that's closest to the drummer. That's what I put in.
Same. Yeah.
The open ear. But that's interesting, Rudy. That is a perfect argument for that. Because like you say, there's a separation between dimension, what you're hearing and what you're feeling.
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah. Huh.
How people have nightmares of they're giving a presentation and they're naked or something like that. They look down, they're like, oh my God, like weird nightmares like that. Mine is that I have in-ears in and it sounds amazing in here. And then, but I take them out. I'm like, oh my gosh, you sound terrible. And I didn't know. Everyone's in on the joke but me.
My nightmare is usually I'm the clothed one and everybody in the audience is naked. Just saying. I'm at the wrong show.
I have played I played nude stock.
Nice.
Yes, nude stock. It's a nudist rock festival that it's at a Battle Creek in Michigan.
That's incredible.
Okay.
I'm from Ohio, so I can say, of course, it's Michigan.
There's
It wasn't in the wintertime, obviously.
There's a history to that, about health consciousness.
Yeah.
Kellogg's, that was like a sanitarium. And then they, that's where the Kellogg's cornflakes evolve and everything. So it's a very health conscious community up there in Battle Creek. And they have a nude fest. I don't know if they still have it, but I play there. So I know what it's like to play in front of a
That is amazing.
Did the band have to be nude too, or just the audience?
Optional.
Amazing.
The band before us, they were naked. and they were doing an AC/DC song. So the singer, the guitar player gets on the shoulders of the singer.
Oh no. Man.
Naked.
I'd be like, what band were you with, Rudy, when you played this?
Oh, Quiet Riot.
Oh my God, awesome.
We got paid very well.
You can just wear your instrument low enough, it's low risk.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think with the Chili Peppers used to go out with with tube socks.
So, yeah.
You're not too far off. Oh my God. That is awesome. That is so awesome. I'll have to look that up. Nude Fest. Oh man. So, do you think? Do you think at some point? And I know we've asked this before, but I have my opinions. But I'm going to ask you, Rudy. Do you think at some point that something like the SVT plugin or some like computer software might eventually replace actual live amps on stage?
You know, we are, as creators and as fans of music, we have sacrificed so much of our artistic vision. Of basically, it starts in your head. You hear something, and then as musicians, we rely on so much that you have an idea, you hear in your head, and it has to go through a filter. Then you tell the guys in the band, "Hey, I got this idea, this song," and then it's got. Imagine if you were Picasso and handing a brush to your other painter friends. Okay, yeah. How about if you finish the painting for me? I mean, this is what I see, but you guys have to come in and be part of this too because you're the band.
Yeah.
So everybody puts in their ideas of what it looks like. Then you take into the recording studio, and you might all be in the same room, right? Recording, and you go, "Wow, that's a great take." Then there's a mixer out there that just ruins the whole thing because it makes us completely different. And then, it gets out of the recording studio and now is being shrunk into an MP3.
Yeah.
I think the fact that people gather and the people that attend our performances, they sacrifice. They sometimes they leave their kids at home. They get a babysitter. They pay all this money to park the car, to buy the ticket, to buy a shirt because they're fans, and they do it because to listen to a band performing live, to feel that frequency that they're creating, it's an event. It's an emotional consciousness, collective consciousness. It's like if you go to watch the band U2, they're playing in a stadium, and it's all like I don't think that there's a single person in that stadium that disagrees with either the song choices or the consciousness choices that's been delivered by the band. It's all one mass energy that's being created, and once you do something of that magnitude, there's no experience like it. So the fact that having amplifiers on stage, I don't think it will go away in our lifetime. It might not. It might get, for some weird reason, there might be some kind of a pandemic associated with volume that you can only play. Right. You cannot. People are going to have to go to concerts wearing in-ears and then plug it in or tune into a certain channel or something weird like that, right? Yeah. I mean, it's part of the ritual of the human tribe for us to be able to resonate and create resonance. That we can be within that field of frequency and resonance and be a part of it, because we are made out of frequencies. Our bodies, I've been studying quantum physics a lot, just because it's about frequency. It's about what we do as musicians and as manufacturers. The fact that Ampeg has gone back to the original intent of the amplifier at a time where people are dropping that and moving into something that is not, it's virtual. It's not real. When you plug it into an Ampeg, it's real. It's a real experience. You're going to play something that's in your head and your body is going to feel it. We are, as artists, and I'm talking about painters, anybody that is in the waves business, creating waves, whether you do it visually with colors or you do it with sound. We are the only ones who can actually take matter, which is an instrument, matter, a particle, an instrument, and turn it into waves. That's the most God-like experience. That's what God, our creator, does. From the quantum field, you got waves that once you acknowledge the waves, they turn into particles. We're doing the opposite. We're taking particles, we're taking instruments and turning that into wave. That's how we communicate. That's how we, a song. How many times have we performed in countries that English is not the local language, but people hear the music?
Yeah.
And they feel it. They know exactly what you mean because of what you're playing.
Wow.
I love that. You know what? All I got to say is there's been this stigma about bass players and us being simple or whatever. But every artist that we've had here on SVT Time, we go deep and we go into like quantum physics. And, I think everybody that we've had on has been like just spiritually so sound too. And it's really cool to see that because I think it has a lot to do with our role in a band as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And not only, our roles, especially that frequency that we deal with, it's, it's either epsilon or Cronus. That's 0 hertz. And to me, the bass is as close as we get to that.
Yeah.
That frequency,
Man, I'm speechless. I really am. Seriously, you just gave me a whole new perspective on just our all the way down to why we do what we do, not just being bassists, but being musicians. There's a meme that's going around on Facebook, when you're having a bad day, just think you're taking an inanimate object and making something beautiful out of it, meaning, a guitar or an instrument.
Yeah.
That's, it kind of put a tear in the back of my eye because you just restored my faith in how, and what we do. I mean, that's, Dom and I, we think up ideas for amplifiers every day, and Dom more than I do. I don't think as much. I just kind of look and go, yeah, that's really cool. But yeah, it restored our faith because as a manufacturer, especially a manufacturer like Ampeg, where we're building iconic amplifiers. I mean, let's face it, we're building amplifiers that were designed 60 years ago, and sometimes we question, like, man, are we doing the right thing? Where everybody's, taking all these great things and turning them into ones and zeros for the sake of making transportability easier on my back or quicker to, are we doing the right thing? And, obviously I know we're going to have to bend a little bit because there are players out there that want lightweight stuff. Some like Brian's asking here, he might be in a situation where he doesn't want to carry an amplifier, but yeah, it's just, thank you for reaffirming that because it really does mean a lot when people say, when we see every SVT sold, and a guy, or I'm on the Ampeg Facebook owners group and somebody's showing off their rig with 4 810 cabs and 3 heads, and people go, well, where are you going to use that rig? It doesn't matter where he's going to use it or where she's going to use it. It's the fact that that's what gets their soul going. That's what gets them to make music. That's what inspires them to pick up the instrument every day and create something with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where they're playing with it. It's just, I don't care if you're playing in your garage with 5 810 cabs, and it's what juices your soul to want to pick up an instrument. So
perfectly put. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%, Dino. And if anybody asks, so why am I doing this? For the pure purpose of finding the healing qualities of sound. And it's not going to be healing if it's digital. Zeros and ones do not heal. Waves heal. We are waves. We're beings that resonate and vibrate at a subatomic level. That's what keeps us as solids, right? Together. Yeah. Zeros and ones don't do that. It's the waves that do that. Waves and particles. That's all there is to the universe. Waves and particles at the fundamentals of everything. That's what the quantum physicists has gone down to, and I'm pretty sure they'll find something below that, sub level of that, and it still will be waves and particles.
Yeah.
Bernardo shared something really cool about that, and this is similar to, I hope, a lot of people's experience. This is similar to my experience, where I had heard what I loved in bass and recordings, and not knowing at the time that those were all Ampeg, and then same experience as Bernardo, where like the first time I just plugged into an Ampeg stack, it truly did change my life too. You just feel it's literally the Ampeg experience. You feel it and you hear it and you're just like, that's what gets that. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And what's most important today is the fact that when originally Ampegs were being recorded, they were being recorded analog. So you're going to get a real true representation of what the frequencies of the equipment is. And the more people hear the music as digital, the more there's a need for them to go to the original source to hear it live, the way it was intended to be played. We have, if you think of us listening to a classical recording, let's say you listen to whatever, a symphony today, right? Now, originally that symphony, let's say Beethoven, there's no way that we can go back to Beethoven's time. I mean, let's maybe in a few years from now, they'll find a time machine. But as of right now, we can't. And we cannot be in the same place listening to the way Beethoven heard that orchestra in that room, that concert hall, or being in the audience. That's a step away from it, right? Now we're being diluted of interpretations of how Beethoven conducted that orchestra and instruments sounded in those days. We're getting so far removed from the original intent of music creation that it's so important for our generation to stop that. Now we're able to, this artist went in the studio with this equipment. They recorded it. You might have an option that you can get a vinyl copy of that recording or listen to it on Spotify. It's your choice. But if you really want to hear the way that artist meant it to be, go see them play live. Listen to that with those amplifiers on stage. So it's that real experience of waves being intermingle, crossfading on that stage, and then it gets, it could be anywhere. It could be in a stadium or it could be in a club. Yeah, you're getting the true experience of the performance.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's go see a jazz performance, like a jazz trio. Upright, drums, piano, and a horn player maybe, where there's no amplifiers on stage, no PA system. And you're just getting the true essence of a performance direct from the instruments.
Absolutely.
Wow. Wow. And that
being said, Brian, don't be ashamed. If you need to use SVT Suite Live, please do.
Oh, no. Everything that I've been talking about digital versus analog is, once you're in that digital world, we do this every day. We have to rely on that in order to create the best tool. It doesn't even come close. I have used in the past certain plugins that has a version of the SVT. I don't know if you guys work with them or not. And I got to tell you, if you put compare those two, there's no comparison. The suite, the Ampeg suite, the SVT suite that you guys have available, it should be that if you want an Ampeg sound, that's the only thing that you must use. That's it,
Yeah.
nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Agreed.
it's from the source, you know, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. We were talking to our good friend Eva on the last SVT time, and you know, she came out, she has her new EP, and of course I ordered it in vinyl, you know, because we have an old turntable upstairs in the living, the old console, the Magnavox console stereos, you know, and Sunday mornings, man, that's how I get the kids out of bed. Like I put on an album and I crank the old console stereos, an old tube amplifier, and
I
you
love
know,
that.
scratchy needle and everything. But it's like,
You know, the reason why I laugh when you say Magnavox, yesterday I spent the whole afternoon demolishing the inside of a Magnavox, like you're talking about. It's been in my wife's family since the 60s. And I plugged it in, you know, it sounded, and she goes, you know what? I want to use that as a you know, to store clothing in the bedroom. It's been in the garage all this time, right? So the thing's got like 60-year-old dust. It's like, right? So I said, oh, no problem. That thing is built like a freaking tank. I had to take a sledgehammer to it, and
Right?
it would not break. I took like, you know, drilling holes. That sucker is built like a tank. And this is a Magnavox. It has a little label that says built in Fort Wayne, Indiana. This is how
Yeah.
old it is.
Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I just found one. Amy and I are gonna grab it it was advertised as a TV stand on Facebook Marketplace. $30.
dude,
$30.
If you
Oh, we grabbed it. We're getting it tomorrow. Yeah.
I'm
I'm so excited.
I'm telling you, it's, you know, this thing has been in our family since I was a kid. And I remember, like, as a young kid, before like 8, 9 years old, you know, sitting in front of that thing, and my older brothers, putting on Who albums and Kiss and Van Halen 1. And I remember listening to those albums as a young kid before I was even a bass player. Listen to that stuff. And we brought it in the house. This was a couple of years ago. We brought it in the house, and I turned it on. Luckily, it turned on. I put I put an album on, and this flood of emotions from when I was 8, 9 years old. Like you were saying, it's a very visceral experience. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I feel like I'm 8 years old again, sitting there in front of the stereo, listening to the Van Halen 1, like a little kid. Like my wife was amazed at, like, she saw the look on my face, just how I transformed into it. So now every Sunday, when the kids are home, you know, they're up and about and they do their own things. But every Sunday, I put a piece of vinyl, or you can stack the albums. Talk about the original playlist maker.
Oh,
where you
wow.
can stack, you know, the albums, and it'll drop one album to the next album. I'll put on like 3 or 4 albums, and that's what we listen to Sunday mornings while we're having coffee and making breakfast.
That's awesome.
It's that, you know,
Particles to waves.
Yeah, it's literally, what's an album? It's a groove that a needle sits in, and it vibrates, and it creates waves.
So cool.
The only thing that survived is it's like a cartridge that you put in the middle, and you stack the 45s on that. And I looked at it because I could actually remove it, and I go, not only is this cute, but a lot of thought went into this. This is high tech for 60 years. So it's you know, I have like a paperweight now.
That's cool.
Oh, here, I have a picture right here. Hold on. I'm indulging myself here by showing this picture, but let me see if actually I know this we use this for social media for 1 minute, but that's it.
Oh wow, looks amazing.
That's the stereo, and that's my little practice section in the corner of our living room. I play along with albums now.
I love it.
Put on an album and I sit there and I learn.
That's killer.
Cool. Yeah,
beautiful.
So, anyways, well, listen. I know we went way over again, Rudy. I hope we're not keeping you from a session or something.
No,
If we are,
it's
I
all good.
apologize.
Okay. I mean, if I know that I'm doing the, SVT time, I won't book anything after that. So
Yeah.
I'm open. Yeah.
Because Dino and Dom, they're going to hold me up for another 20 minutes after the
No,
hour.
I just love this. I really do. I mean, it means a lot to me as a musician that you guys are keeping it real. At a time where everybody is just like going a whole different direction, you guys are like, you're holding it. You're holding the fort, because it is so important that the original intent of the amplifiers remain the same for generations to come.
Yeah.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you. I mean, I have to say, you are so accessible. And when I mean that, obviously coming on here with SVT time, and this is the second time you've come on the show, but I see your engagement on social media too. You're always commenting on people's posts. You're blessing them, you're thanking them, you're always encouraging people. So it really is, it's awesome to see you, and you're a godsend, man. Thank you for being you and doing what you do. I mean that sincerely.
Well, I'm blessed to be able to do this through all these years, and I'm blessed to be able to get up on stage, and still that sound in my head is still there.
Yeah.
When I plug it into an SVT, thank God that every single backline company has an SVT equipment. Thank God.
Yeah, exactly. I know. There's a story in there that I won't even go, but it's like the entire world. Thank God, the entire world is going back on tour in the next few months, and it's been amazing. People that have been reaching out saying, "Hey, I need gear. I need gear. I need gear. Where can I get gear?" It's like, man, thank you for just for going back out and needing gear and reaching out to me too, because but anyways, man, thank you so much for coming on. You're always welcome here. I hope you'll come back, and
I'd love to.
hopefully it won't be another year, but and next time I'm out in Calabasas, you and I we'll all get together for lunch and have some burritos.
Yeah. Yes.
So everybody, I just want to say thank you for your comments. Thank you for your support. The questions were fantastic, and please keep them coming. You'll be able to stream this later on throughout the week. I know Erin will be rebroadcasting this probably beginning of next week. Next SVT time is February 8th, actually, which is my birthday.
All right.
You guys don't have to send me anything. And I won't, it's not confirmed yet, but we're hoping to have Jack Bates from Smashing Pumpkins
Great.
come on. I just was emailing him early, and that's kind of the date we're looking at. But SVT time, February 8th. So thanks everyone for joining in, and be safe, stay healthy, and play more bass, guys. We'll see you. All right.